It's not as bad as it sounds. So, we try to make it fun. So you'll be building a game in the studio. Because there's 50 of you, you can actually build a reasonably sophisticated game in a semester. And of course, it's designed around teaching you how do you actually manage delivering something when there is a large number of people working on it. So it's well structured and organized to say, well, how do you actually coordinate people within a team of 50 so we can actually not destroy each other's work and actually deliver something. So students are successful. I don't think we've ever had a team that couldn't deliver something. And then you'll have an elective space in that semester as well. So your second semester at UQ, you'll start your capstone project. Doesn't have to be because of electives. You could actually start it in your third semester at UQ. But typically, we would say, start your capstone project in your second semester at UQ because it'll continue on into your third semester at UQ. There's a functional logic programming course, and then there's an advanced software engineering elective, and then there's a generative AI course. So that's sort of one of the mandatory AI courses you'll take, which will be then in your second semester at UQ. And so generative AI is looking at how do I actually use Gen AI? What are all the different tools getting you through to the stage of actually building something reasonably sophisticated? Your third semester at UQ, typically this is where you'll finish up your capstone project, and then you'll start your individual thesis. So capstone project is a team project, and so I said confusingly, the capstone projects are also called design studio. So you'll have a software engineering studio, and then a design studio 3, and then design studio 3 build, which is the capstone project. Also in this semester, you would do systems principles in programming. So it's looking at all the details around low-level programming, concurrency, threaded programming, network programming. So it's technical and interesting. And then you'd also do software testing. So a fairly heavily automated approach to how do you use tools to do software testing, how do you automate it, how do you use AI in testing. Your final semester, you'll do software architecture. So that's the course I typically teach. And in software architecture, it's looking at how do I design the structures of very large systems. And so we look at things on the scale of an Amazon-style system. How can I build the same or use AWS infrastructure to build the same type of system as Amazon? What are the design techniques for very large, complex systems? And then one of your assignments will be, and actually then build something that demonstrates you can do it. So build a scalable software system. So last semester, students had to build an age verification system, which is topical because Australia just changed the laws that they had to do age verification to access social media. So it's an age verification system. Assuming that you're going to have 20 million Australians needing to access it and verify their age in one day. So how can you build a software system that can actually manage and accommodate that type of load, where you have literally tens of thousands of users accessing the system concurrently? So that's what we cover in software architecture. You'll finish your thesis. So your thesis is an individual project. You'll do a course on professional practice. So looking at the activities you would perform as a professional engineer in a bigger business context. And then you have another advanced elective. Any questions about what you're studying or topics or things that you do? Okay, the other component of this is it is an engineering degree. So upon completion of it, you get a Bachelor of Engineering with a specialization in software engineering as an honors degree from UQ. And so that means you need to complete an internship. You need to complete a set of professional practice hours. You also need to do an internship for your KMITL degree. So you can use the one internship for both. So one of the tips is there's a minimum number of hours where you have to be supervised by a software engineer, which I believe is the requirement for your internship for KMITL. So you really want to get a letter from your supervisor in your internship explaining their degree qualification. So that way, when you come to UQ, you can say, here's my internship, here's the evidence that I was supervised by a software engineer, and it's done. Okay, scholarships. Good news, you've won a scholarship.
Yes.
So, part of the agreement with KMITL, so in recognition of the standards of KMITL and the studying here, all KMITL students automatically get the Excellence Scholarship. And so that's a 25% reduction in fees for studying at UQ. There's other scholarships you can apply for. And so these are additional. So feel free to apply for other scholarships if you think that you might get them. Or even if you only vaguely think you might qualify, because far too often I'm reading scholarship applications and I know students who are better qualified for the scholarship, but they didn't apply. Obviously they didn't get it. So apply, because the better student might not. So some of the scholarships that are available, there's a website where you can look up details. There's an International House Residency Scholarship. So one of our residences or dormitories is International House. And so if you're a resident staying in International House, you can apply for their residency scholarship. So that's an extra $7,000 to use for your living expenses. There's an LGBTQIA+ scholarship, so that's $4,500. There are a number of engineering-specific scholarships. So those are the ones to take a look, because there's just far too many for me to list. There's also hardship bursaries. So if you are struggling for money, you can apply for scholarships or bursaries based on hardship. I mentioned, when you finish, you graduate with a Bachelor of Engineering honors degree. There's a special purpose of an honors degree in Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. It means it's a fast track into a PhD. You don't have to complete a master's. So by completing the degree at UQ, you would then be eligible to apply for a PhD without needing to do a master's first. And so that's why I'm mentioning that for a PhD. So there's scholarships available for that, which is twofold. One is it covers all of your fees for the scholarship, and also it provides $35,000, so it's a little more than $35,000 a year as a living stipend as well. So you can look up scholarships if you're interested. Okay, the horrible thought. It costs money. So the current cost is a very strange number, $3,628.50 per unit. Everyone does 8 units per semester, so it's going to be a fixed amount per semester, which means you do 2 semesters a year. So the fee is $58,056. remember that scholarship. So, as I said, you automatically get the scholarship. So your actual fee is $43,542 for a year. And then the other thing to note about that scholarship is if you decide to stay at UQ and do a master's degree, it continues. So you would still maintain that 25% discount if you continue to do a master's degree. So I mentioned some companies that we work with. So Google, Facebook, Oracle, Microsoft, many other companies. Who's heard of Canva? Yeah, that was pretty well known. So it's a very large Australian-based software company. They like UQ students. So lots of UQ students get internships or jobs at Canva. So it's a good opportunity. So with the professional practice, I said your internship here will count towards your professional practice. That doesn't stop you from taking an internship while you're in Australia and trying to get a job with a company locally as an intern. So there's many internships available for you to take advantage of. So Jess is one of our software engineering graduates. She graduated a couple of years ago now, and she works at Boeing. So Boeing, presumably you know who they are, has a large office in Brisbane. And so they employ about 1,500 employees and software developers, engineers in Brisbane. So they're another opportunity. In terms of income, so these are just average numbers from 2023 survey, where engineering is the second highest income earner. That counts all of engineering, which is good to know because civil engineers don't earn as much. So software engineers earn more than that on average. In terms of either getting an internship or a job, things to think about in terms of looking at employers and how to sell yourself to employers is companies obviously want technical skills, but they're assuming that what they also want is people who are capable of working with others, and they want to see that you can demonstrate that. So life skills outside of your degree are important and things you can use to sell yourself. So other experiences are useful. Your internship here is obviously useful because you can say, I worked for, I did this, I completed this. They're looking for people who can communicate well. We mentioned you will have work experience. So you're well placed in terms of getting an internship and applying for jobs. And it's important to sell yourself. Don't be too modest. Don't be boastful, but don't be too modest when you're applying for a position. Another important thing to be aware of, most Australian companies that are not little companies have to deal with a multinational marketplace. You can sell yourself as, I can speak Thai, I can read Thai, I can write Thai. There will be companies who will want Thai employees because they will have contracts in Thailand. Okay, opportunities. One of the things is, as a student, your student visa comes with rights to work in Australia. So as a student, you can work for what's called 48 hours per fortnight. And fortnight is a horrible term from the UK. It just means 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks you can work up to 48 hours. That could be 40 hours one week and 8 the next. But don't do 40 one week and 12 the next. The other thing is that's during the study period. So you will have 1 month's winter break and a 2.5 month summer break. You can actually work full time during those breaks. And then as a graduate, upon completing 2 years of study in Australia, i.e. your 2 years at UQ in the 2+2, you're then eligible for a 2-year work visa, which is a minor paperwork formality. So it's not a complicated process. You just submit an application saying, here's my transcript, here's my graduation details, please give me the 2-year work visa. So I've mentioned your scholarship continues if you continue on into a master's program. So master's programs that might be of interest to you. So there's Master's in Computer Science, and the plus management is you can add an extra 6 months onto that to take a set of business courses as well. There's a Master's in Cybersecurity, there's a Master's in Data Science. So these are all master's degrees that you would be eligible to enter with the Bachelor of Engineering. There's also a Master's of Professional Engineering in Software Engineering, so you can then go on and take more advanced topics in software engineering. There's Masters of Engineering Science. In general, I wouldn't recommend it because if you want to do a Master's of Engineering, do the Professional Engineering. But there is specific cases where you decide you want to do mechatronics, then you would do Masters of Engineering Science in mechatronics. But if you want to continue in software engineering, do the Masters of Professional Engineering. There's a Masters of Philosophy, which is a research master's. And the reality is, don't bother, because you're already eligible to enter a PhD. So if you're going to do research, do a PhD. So UQ is very proud of its on-campus experience. We have good facilities available for students to use. We have good labs. A lot of UQ's income comes from commercialization of research, which means that we have more money than a lot of other universities to spend on equipment. We have a space called UQ Innovate, so that's our makerspace. So it's the largest makerspace in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's got lots of equipment. So it's got everything from the obvious, little tools and soldering stations, but you can design a PCB and they can print it off for you. They've got laser cutters, water cutters, all sorts of fun stuff that you can get access to. So as a student in our faculty, you have free access to Innovate. Some of your courses will actually make use of it. So some coursework will say, oh, you've got a budget, you can spend this much in UQ Innovate to build something for your assessment. But for your own personal projects, you can access Innovate for free. You just pay for any materials that you use. So if you do some 3D printing, you pay for the ink or the plastic that you use in printing. If you want a PCB printed, they can do that for you. You just pay for the PCB. So you don't have to pay for the labor involved. I briefly mentioned that UQ is, a lot of our income comes from commercializing research. So we have a strong emphasis on entrepreneurship and innovation. So University's annual budget is about 2.5 billion Australian dollars. Last year, one company paid us over 2 billion Australian dollars just for one patent. So there's a lot of income comes from innovation. So there's an incentive to commercialize things. So we have what we call UQ Ventures, which is to support you as students to learn how to become an entrepreneur, to get involved in entrepreneurship projects. And if you actually have an idea and want to take it to commercialization, there's funding support to help you get there, and there's an incubator provided for you to actually get your company started. So I've got a number of students in the past who have started companies up through UQ Ventures. We also have a very good employability team. So the employability team are there to help you get a job. They're there to help you in terms of how do you present yourself, how do you write a CV to present yourself well, how do you interact in an interview or mock interviews. So lots of opportunities to learn how to sell yourself to companies. And we've got a lot of clubs. So over 200 clubs. So almost any interest you might possibly have, there probably is a club for it. And I'm not going to try to list them.
The UQCS Hackathon is our biggest event of the year. Over the course of 2.5 days, we have up to 200 students who turn up to the Advanced Engineering Building to build all sorts of really cool projects, ranging from web apps to games to anything in between. We have over $5,000 worth of prizes with many different categories. Anything that you want to build, we've got a category for.
A great project is made by a few things. It's got to be a fantastic idea. The second thing is the technology has to be excellent. And then the final point is execution. It's got to be well executed, well-rounded project. I love seeing the projects. I love seeing the ideas that people come up with because anything is open. And so we see the most wildly innovative things.
The UQCS Hackathon was a lot of fun. It's an experience that I will never forget. It's the highlight of my year, and I really enjoyed participating again this year. What I get out of the hackathon, other than being a contestant, is probably the fact that you get to spend all your time here with like-minded people, your friends, and they're all there to help you out, and you're there to help them out.
It is a 24/7 hackathon, which means that people get to stay overnight coding their nights away and also throughout the day. And of course, to support this, we provide lots of food, drinks and snacks to make sure everyone is doing well.
I encourage all students to participate in hackathons. Good preparation, good work in a hackathon, the team experience, delivering under pressure are all things that will stand someone in good stead when they hit the IT industry.
So if you're looking forward to joining in on all the fun and action, please come down to the UQ Computing Society and we'd love to see you there at our next hackathon.
So UQ Computer Society, or UQCS, is one of the student societies that we're saying you should join because of things like that. So lots of opportunities. They do lots of industry meetups, so you get to meet people working in industry, hear their experiences. The people from industry come because they're looking to hire people. So that's why you go to the events, because you get to meet people who are really hiring. So there's Matt was featured in that video. So he's a senior architect at Technology One. It's the largest software development company in Australia. So they hire, well, over a dozen UQ students every year. They hire dozens of people, hundreds of people over a year. They have several thousand employees. So it's an opportunity to meet people who are doing the real hiring. Okay, coming to Brisbane. Obviously obviously you're going to need to live somewhere. We provide support. So we have what we call the guaranteed student accommodation. If you're coming to UQ as an international student, we will guarantee that you can find a place to stay before you get here. So I mentioned all that student accommodation along the river. So they're called our residential colleges. The residential colleges follow what's called an Oxbridge model. So what that means is it provides you not just accommodation, not just meals, and so their cost includes meals, but they provide social support, so they have social activities, but they also provide mental health support, and they provide academic support. So they have tutors who live in the colleges and can help you with assessment and activities and learning things and subjects. So the residential colleges are expensive, but that's because you're paying for not just accommodation, you're also paying for your meals and also all the extra support. We have other residences available. So those were some of the ones that I mentioned that were around the other side of campus. And so these are not as expensive. And some of them include meals, some of them don't include meals. And then they provide cooking facilities if they don't include meals. So they're not quite as expensive. And then you can live off campus. So there's a lot of companies who provide accommodation for students because there's several universities in Brisbane. So there's tens of thousands of international students in Brisbane, so they provide accommodation. So it's hard to say how much that's going to cost. That's why it's such a big price range, because it depends on who provides it, where it's located. If you want something really convenient to the city and transport, it's going to be more expensive. If you're willing to live a bit further away from campus, but still have reasonable transport, then it's not going to be so expensive. So different options available for that. So I showed you a photo of campus. So this is where our campus is located on the bend in the Brisbane River. The circle up here that's the Brisbane Central Business District. There's tens of thousands of student accommodation apartments in that area as well. So we have what we call South Bank and North Bank of the river, and there's student accommodations on both sides. And because it's the Central Business District, there's lots of bus routes plus the ferry into campus. So that's the 20 minutes to go student accommodation in campus by bus, or 30 minutes by ferry. So transport. So I mentioned there's 2 bus stations plus the ferry into campus. It's roughly 7 kilometers from the city center. So the ferries run every 15 minutes during the day. And then there's lots of bus routes on campus. Bus arriving every 2 minutes is a little misleading because that's across 12 different bus routes. But like from the Central Business District, there is a bus that during busy times, it runs every 5 minutes. So it's easy to get to campus. It's easy to walk to campus if you're living close by. There's, along the river, there's a bike route, so you can ride a bike into campus. Lots of people use bikes or e-bikes or scooters to get to campus as well. And one of the few things that is cheap in Brisbane is public transport. So less than MRT here. So 50 cents. So that's roughly 12 baht for a trip anywhere in Brisbane. Other expenses you need to be aware of. So you'll need to apply for a student visa. So that's currently $2,500. You need to have health insurance to cover you while you're in Australia. So that's about $660 per year. Living expenses, it varies widely depending on what your tastes are. So you can live at a modest rate and do a lot of your own cooking, and it's on the lower end of that cost spectrum. You can eat out a lot, and it will be on the more expensive end of that spectrum. But yeah, living in Brisbane is a lot more expensive than living here, so you need to be aware of that, think of that in your planning, and in your planning, make sure that you plan to have money available to do other stuff than just study. So a couple things I've got. So there's a budget calculator here. So it's a budget calculator set up by Money magazine in the United Kingdom, but it's for international students. So it helps you plan what your costs will be, and to think through all of the things that you might not think of initially. Even in the UK, it's in pounds, but it doesn't really matter because you're just putting in numbers, so you can just pretend it's dollars. Another site that's useful is Numbeo. So Numbeo is a crowdsourced site that collects data on real things. So they'll collect data from people who say, oh, I just bought a hamburger for, I just went out for a Thai dinner and it cost this much. I bought a loaf of bread, I bought a bottle of milk. So the real cost of things in Brisbane from people who've actually just spent the money to buy it in Brisbane. So it's a good site to get a feel for how much it's going to cost to actually pay for things and buy things in Brisbane. Other opportunities. We're a research-intensive university, so we've got lots of research projects which need people to do stuff. So we offer summer and winter research programs. So it's an opportunity for you to work on a research project with our research staff. It's also a good opportunity to meet the research staff in areas you're interested in, because then a lot of students will end up continuing to work with them into the next semester. So we provide an extra scholarship for students who work on these projects. So for summer, it's a longer period, so the scholarship is $3,000. In winter, it's $2,000. And it's fun, it's a great experience. It's a great thing to have on your CV, like contributed to this research project. And the nice thing to know, scholarships in Australia are tax-free. So you don't pay tax on this. If you get an internship and they're paying you, you're paying tax on that. So any questions?
Question?
ไม่เข้าใจหลักสูตรโปรแกรม
ถามหน่อย
หรือว่าอยากทราบเพิ่มเติม
สงสัยแค่ตารางเรียน
ตารางเรียนสงสัยว่า
เริ่มเรียนตรงไหน
จุลายทั้งปีเลย
เวลาถามเริ่มเรียน8 โมง
อ๋อ โอเคถามเลยค่ะบางที
I have the problem about now I have the question about the schedule.
Yeah.
The time we start the class and when is the class will end.
Oh, classes. That's messy. So classes at UQ could start at 8 in the morning and could go through to 8 o'clock at night. But no, they're not going to be all day, and you're not going to have that every day. So how the scheduling works is every class has a variable number of hours. So an average is a class will have a 2-hour lecture, and then it will have a 2-hour tutorial or laboratory. Some classes might have extra. So like my software architecture class has the 2-hour lecture, 2-hour laboratory, and a 1-hour tutorial. So those get scheduled whenever the university can fit them in, and then you get a schedule. So typically, if you'll do 4 classes a semester, and each class will have 4 or 5 hours, so that means you're doing probably roughly 18 hours in class each week. And you might find that you have 8 of those hours on one day, and then 2 hours on the next day, and then 6 hours on the next day, and then you're done. So how it happens is based on how the university schedules classes, so it's not easy to say, oh, your timetable will be. And you may find that this morning you start at 8 o'clock, and then the next morning you start at 11 o'clock. Most classes, there'll be 1 lecture for everyone, but there'll be multiple laboratories or tutorials. And so you would then essentially nominate your preferences for the labs and tutorials. And obviously the popular ones, everyone nominates for. So you're not going to get guaranteed access to your nominated tutorial, but it's worth making sure you nominate for a few of the ones that are going to suit you best. So count on roughly 18 hours of classes. Every course assumes that you're going to be putting in 10 to 12 hours a week on the course. So if the course has 4 hours of contact with 2 hours lecture and 2 hours of lab, we're going to assume you're doing another 6 to 8 hours of study on your own, and that's on your own, where it fits into your schedule. So, yeah, it's, as I said, a messy answer, but it trying to give you some idea.
Richard, you have the slide on the tuition fee.
Yeah.
Can you go to that slide, please?
Okay, so that's the
this one,
tuition fees.
yeah, the 58,000.
Yeah.
Is that in Australian dollar? Is it?
Yes.
This one is Australian dollar.
So all the numbers are Australian dollars, yes. So 58,000 is the standard tuition fee for any engineering course. So that's what you would pay per year for
But then
an
what
engineering
we're
program.
gonna look at is not that one. It's for
But yes,
43,000. Okay.
but the big thing to note is, remember the 25% scholarship.
It's already 25% reduction.
Yes.
Okay.
So what you're actually paying is the 43,500 per year.
How much is the Australian dollar?
23.
So yeah, it's not good at the moment. It's about 1 to 23. Other questions? I should say we have high expectations of you. So the first group from KMITL in the 2+2 graduated this year in July. Well, they all got first class honors, i.e. that means they all got GPAs of well over 3.5. So expect you to do well. So said we gave you a scholarship, that is because we do trust the quality of education at KMITL. We know that you're well prepared. So it's hard for me to keep track of all of them. I know at least one of them got a job in Australia. The other two have jobs, I'm just not sure where. All three of them did get internships while they were studying.
I have another problem. I think I heard that we need some physics to as one of the requirements.
So yes, there is a physics requirement. So general requirement for entry into engineering is that you've completed physics. It can be high school physics, but that means that you need to get the curriculum details of your high school physics and send that with your application to say, this is the physics I completed. If you didn't do physics at high school, or you think it's just too hard to get physics details, then you need to do physics here. And then we just automatically tick that off, saying, oh, you've completed university level physics, so you've met the physics requirements. So you do one physics course here to meet the physics requirement. Or the worst case is you come to UQ and you do our physics course. But that becomes one of your electives. That first semester general elective could be the physics course if you need it.
And I heard the GPA of like 3.2.
So yes, so the entry requirement into the program is 3.2 or higher.
What about like IELTS or SAT?
Okay, so you don't need an SAT either for the bachelor's or any of the master's programs. In reality, SAT is a terrible testing system, so we just say it's not worth doing. So we just look at your GPA. So for entry into the bachelor's, it's your KMITL GPA. For entry into master's, it's then your UQ GPA. IELTS, if you're doing the international program here, then we take that as you've studied 2 years in English, so you don't need an IELTS score. If you're not doing the international program, then you need an IELTS of 6.5, and then no sub-band lower than 6. But in general, high students don't tend to have a problem with English requirement.
ต้อง6.5อินเตอร์ก็เอา
อาจารย์อาจจะเป็นอาจารย์คนนี้คนที่เขาไม่เอา
ใช่แต่ว่าในซิสเต็มอะเขาเอา
ก็ต้องมีอยู่ดีนะครับ
คิดว่าแต่เดี๋ยวพี่จะลองไปถามเพราะว่าถ้าอาจารย์พูดแบบนี้แล้วก็ทีมแอดมิชชั่นว่า
3.15. Are you like very strict about?
So sometimes we round up, yes. So yes. So if you're, 3.1 something, apply. Because you need to apply before the end of your 4th semester. So typically you apply at the end of your 3rd semester here. And so your GPA may change after the 4th semester. So if you're close-ish, apply anyways.
And I heard
Yeah.
How can we check the physics requirement?
Sorry, what physics?
How can we check the physics requirement?
Oh, checking the physics requirements. So if you've done physics at high school, that's really a problem. So there's no simple way of checking other than submitting your application and then saying, here's my physics, is it good enough? So what happens is, if someone has already been to the same high school you went to and did physics there, then we will already have checked it and they will be able to quickly say yes or no. But if that isn't the case, then they will actually send your curriculum off to our physics lecturers to check, who will then come back and say yes, whether it's good enough or not. So unfortunately, there's no easy way of checking other than applying. So yeah, so if you do the KMITL physics course, then that's just an automatic completion, because we're looking for high school physics. So if you've done university level physics, that'll be better than what we need.
How often do they get accepted?
I don't really know. So I know that, so what the applicants who started this year found that they were stricter and they had to provide more information and had to send more information back and forth. But they eventually got approved. Previous years, it seemed to be easier. They just sent the information and it was approved. But this recent round, they asked for more details. So far it's not, many students have been rejected, but a number of students have had to get extra detail from high school.
How many second year students in this room? Do you raise your name? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you need to be serious, because if you want to go, you have to prepare yourself.
So yes, if you're in second year, you really need to be applying either end of this year or beginning of like January, February at the absolute latest. So this is the time to make a firm decision. Yes, I'm going. Yes, I'm going to apply. If you're first year, you've got a little over a year to think about it. But recommendation is, if you're going to go, or pretty confident you're going to go, apply as soon as applications are opened. Because it means if there's any hassle over high school physics, you've got time to collect paperwork and send it in. It means that you then have more time to apply for the student visa. And so if there's any delays or they ask for extra information, there's less stress about it. So apply early.
Wow.
This just makes your life easier. You don't want to be like some of my Chinese students who applied late and then didn't get their visa until after semester started. So then they have to delay 8 months to come in February rather than in July. So apply early. Any other questions?
Is there any student in year 3 and year 4? No? Because they might be interested in doing a master.
And the masters, yes. But yes, we also get KMITL students doing masters after their 4 years here rather than doing the 2+2. Okay, so I think that's it.
Richard, is there any visit from UQ after you finish today? Yeah, just in case they can catch up.
So I'm expecting that we will have another delegation in Bangkok in late November. So Angela's planning a trip. Details aren't finalized yet. But yeah, there should be another delegation here.
She's gonna present something like what?
Presumably you can get her to present something like this. So all of our social media, if you want to follow UQ, and then my details if you want. So Richard Thomas is my email. The visitor one too is my line. And hopefully I will see you at UQ.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
นอกห้องนักศึกษาสามารถมารับเบอร์เกอร์ตรงนี้ได้นะคะเซ็นชื่อแล้วก็รับเบอร์เกอร์ได้เลยค่ะ
ไม่มีแต่รายจ่ายมีแต่เข้าไปตัวอย่าง
พวกปีสองจะไปเรียนนะเทอมหน้าต้องลงฟิสิกส์นะเทอมนี้ไม่ทันหรอกลงไปอย่างเดียวเทอมหน้าต้องเนี่ยระวังนะอันตรายฟิสิกส์ที่ลง
น่าจะแบบเป็นคอนเนคชั่นเขาอาจจะต้องแบบที่คนงานอะไรแบบให้
ไม่ได้อ๋อ